Okay, with that note, we start. Good morning, officially, which I usually do. Let's get back to the slides. The top 10 advances in transcatheter valve therapy of 2021. Clearly, what I had done here is the 2, 4, color-wise, green. Aortic valve, pulmonic, green, done. Tricuspid, kind of yellow, and I'll show you the data. Mitral valve are still struggling, except the clip. And of course, clearly, I really want Dr. Crebier. I call him a father of transcatheter valve therapy. Because of him, we are here April 16th, as Roxana mentioned, 2002, and now will be 20 years later. What to do now? That will be I think that next one has to be that you have put a valve inside the valve, what you do for the new valve. I think that's where we need to see how things are going to go in the future. Now, what also has happened in the valvular heart disease guidelines, that we always worry about the symptomatic severe D. But what is happening, like anything else, we are going a little early if we can do it correctly. So patient who have a severe disease, start getting some asymptomatic but LV dysfunction, that try to tackle that. And that's where some of the advances are. The TAVR over the last decade, we all know, numerous trials for both Evolute as well as SAPIEN, which has led to the understanding and adoption of this technology to traditional risk score, which have now changed. Basically, you call it low and high. Region is, in the high risk, you are it. Just like when we do unprotected left main PCI. There is no surgical coverage. But in the lower risk, there could be a surgical coverage. So lower definitely equipped with the open heart surgery, cardiopulmonary bypass and emergency. So we need to be ready for the lower risk, and the higher risk, we are it. Whatever happens, we need to tackle it. So basically what I'm going to talk of the top 10 advances, which have made some important contribution in 2021. Let's start with the first one. The valvular heart disease guidelines of 2020 basically telling us, little outlining, what could be done and what should be done, risk assessment, basically what we do. Besides STS, everybody knows, but there is beyond that. And that is more important is the frailty. Frailty in old people, very important. You may have STS of 1, but patient barely can walk. The decision is different in that patient. Compared to somebody who is very robust. So STS alone is not the factor, but in addition, other factors get involved. And of course, the cardiac and major organ system involvement comes into. And those are the guidelines basically, that everybody have multidisciplinary heart team. But more importantly, that if it is a complex case, should be referred to a very clear 2A. Consultation with or referral to a primary or comprehensive heart valve center is reasonable when treatment options are being discussed at asymptomatic patients with severe valvular heart disease, patients who may benefit from valve repair versus valve replacement, and patients with multiple comorbidities whom valve intervention is considered. So clearly that there you need to send to everyone. We know that 700 plus centers are doing TAVR now, and about 500 doing a mitral clip, but selected centers will be for the complex cases. So this is the combining ACC/AHA guideline really puts it together. Even in asymptomatic patient with LV dysfunction, positive stress test, they should be appropriate for TAVR. And of course, some cases where this is futile, that also very important. We encounter that every day. They bring a 96-year-old or 92-year-old from nursing home and they want to do a valve replacement TAVR. Not appropriate. Palliative care or balloon valvuloplasty is clearly indicated those cases as shown in the bottom left side. Then for the mitral regurgitation, no longer now, for particularly with the primary degenerative mitral regurg, doesn't have to be prohibitive. As long as they are high risk, the mitral clip is indicated, and of course otherwise repair is the one need to be done. And secondary mitral regurg, functional mitral regurg, basically that transcatheter, if they qualify with the guidelines or recommendation of the co-op trial, basically as to as repair using the mitral clip at present. I know the Pascal and other devices being investigated but has not been approved yet. But the key is as to as repair has come into our life for functional mitral regurg. Then second, antithrombotic therapy post-TAVR. So we got the latest data from Envisage TAVI-AF and the France TAVI. So basically you remember popular TAVI cohort A, which compared DAPT versus aspirin, and aspirin was better. Then we went to the patients who required oral anticoagulation, that do you combine with the antiplatelet therapy? Answer was no, that only the anticoagulation alone is better. And then, of course, now edoxaban with the George Dangas presented the data recently, and this published in NEJM, envisaged TAVI with edoxaban 60 milligram per day, with clearly some modification in terms of the dose adjustment against vitamin K. So question remained still. So I think what we learn is that if you don't need anticoagulation, aspirin alone is good enough. You want to give some cases clopidogrel, that's okay, as long as patient don't need for the PCI point of view. But if what anticoagulation should be used in patients, so that field is still evolving. So this is envisaged TAVI AF was this to answer that question, edoxaban versus vitamin K antagonist, and large number of patients, 1400 randomized, as you can see on the right side, 9.7 versus 7 in terms of bleeding. So that basically was the issue. So there is higher bleeding with edoxaban, and then they've actually talked about that dose adjustment, lower NACE and bleeding happen in the if you have a lower dose. But otherwise, overall, I would say the trial did not prove what it's supposed to. That is, most of the trials in the DOAC or NOACs have shown better than warfarin. But this trial did not show. So that's where we are in terms of bleeding. Now we have the STOP-AS and France TAVI. If you can see here, VKA or DOAC, identical in terms of the overall mortality. But if you take individually, that there is a reduction in mortality. If you combine all the trials, then reduction in major bleeding and no difference in the ischemic endpoint. So there has some movement of the NOAC or DOACs to be used over warfarin, but as you know, many times your insurance companies give hard time to use this agent in a patient with the TAVI at present, because they still consider that as a surgical valve. So this field is still evolving, and we don't have a clear-cut guidelines. As you can see here, only thing it is that rivaroxaban should not be used. But that's only patients who are in the sinus rhythm. So let's go to the third, TAVR and coronary artery disease. The issue remains, if you have CAD and you have severe aortic stenosis, what to do? And there are many publications that maybe just do the valve, leave the CAD alone. There is a trial, a small trial, basically the guidelines, as you can see here, most of them recommend, this is again our valvular heart disease guideline, that do the PCI first, and then 1 month later you do TAVR. Of course, some cases you may have to do a TAVR first and then the PCI, but overall goal is that do the PCI, and if it's a complex and patient going complex CAD, patient is the intermediate risk for STS point of view, that patient should go for surgical valve replacement and CABG, knowing that these may develop restenosis and so. So activation trial was the PCI prior to TAVR, randomization in about 200 plus cases, and basically it showed that overall no difference in the endpoint of the death and rehospitalization, but higher bleeding with the PCI. So therefore, PCI before TAVR, not good, based on the trial. And these are the individual endpoints as shown here. And we know that if once you do TAVR, engaging the coronary is even much difficult, particularly more so for the self-expanding valves. And we actually published the paper a few years ago with the technique point of view. We have the app. So timing of revascularization should be PCI first and the TAVR, or sometime you can do a combine compared to the new trial, which has started. And of course, David will be here to complete TAVR. And that is, after deployment, successful deployment of the TAVR, patients are getting either PCI or continued medical therapy. So this is a complete, just like complete MI, the complete TAVR trial as we started, and we are part of it. Large number of patients, 4,000, multi-center, multi-country trial. That will give the final answer, will take some time. Now, what about TAVR in asymptomatic and moderate AS? Remember two trials, recovery trial, basically from Korea, and then Avatar trial from Serbia, both showed that asymptomatic the surgical valve replacement is better than watchful watching, as you can see here. So aortic valve replacement, the Avatar, which was shown basically severe aortic stenosis and the composite all-cause death, MACE, and overall showed that early surgery is better compared to conservative. So this is for surgical valve. Now we have the two trials of the surgical in asymptomatic patient, which is better. But now we have our early TAVR trial has completed enrollment, and then, of course, it will take some time, 2 years, 900 patients have been enrolled. Wakeful Watch versus the tower, and of course, will take 2 years endpoint. Now, what about the various, low gradient, low flow, low gradient AFs? There's many papers have been published now. The tower is safe and effective compared to continued therapy, or some cases actually surgical valve replacement compared to continued medical management of the patient with a low flow, low gradient. Now, we have the moderate AS with low ejection fraction. Clearly, as you see, the top curve, 88% event. If you have moderate AS and heart failure, managed medically. But if you do, those patients underwent aortic valve replacement, or whether tower or surgical, you clearly bring down the event rate. So very interesting point that moderate AS and the aortic stenosis, and this is UNLOAD trial, which is still ongoing, little struggling in terms of randomization, 1-to-1, the patient with moderate AS of 1 to 1.5 valve area and has a LV dysfunction, and see what to do. We have two other trials. One is the PROGRESS trial, patient with a moderate aortic stenosis, even with a normal ejection fraction, with the SAPIEN, and then we have the EVOLUTE EXPAND Tower 2 pivotal trial, which is we are part of it, same answering the question that do you need to wait for valve area of less than 1, or can you take care between 1 to 1.5? Not only subgroups of LV dysfunction, even with the normal, because there's damage, LV damage to occur. So these are the two trials, PROGRESS and EVOLUTE EXPAND. Both have started enrollment. Of course, will take few years, but will definitely change the guidelines in the future. Then tower access and outcome, geographic and racial disparity. We know that tower numbers are increasing. The 72,000 was 2 years ago. This year expected to be almost 80,000. The tower procedure will be done. And the question has been that now everybody is doing tower. So what is the quality? What are the outcomes for individual center point of view? What is the racial and disparity, whether it's access to the various socio-economic status people? So what has learned is that what used to be about 400 minutes driving time for the tower now has cut down to 26 minutes. Why? Because tower is on every block. 712 centers. You know, the full service cath labs in America are 1,800. So 1/3 of the cath labs in America do tower. And that requires that you have to have cardiac thoracic backup. Total cath labs in the America is like about 8,000. But you talking about which have a surgical backup are about 1,800, and more than 1/3 of them are doing the tower at present. So question comes, the low density, intermediate, and high density, as you can see here, that the site volume of the low density versus high density, because of too many people around, the density, the tower volume is lower. And now this actually is a very nice with a 30-day mortality based on the STS risk score, that once you have a lower volume, your STS score is lower, and of course we expect the more complex centers will do a higher STS risk score. This is the important one, and that is the between case volume and 1 year mortality. So less volume, your higher mortality. So therefore, we have center everywhere around. But what is the compromise? Compromise is the higher mortality, and that's where the issue. Very nicely, conclusion, the tower has expanded significantly over time, but with regional clustering of sites. Although procedural risk is lower at higher density sites, these sites demonstrate at increased hazards of mortality. So the finding suggests that the expansion of tower services in the United States may have had unintended consequences of the procedural quality. So you know what is going to happen. All the insurance companies, the CMS and Medicare, will look at the 1 year data, and they may restrict. Right now, there are guidelines which center can do the tower. But do you continue doing a tower? That may get a guideline, may change, because you don't want to have a bad outcome. The second is, what about the racial, ethnic, and socio-economic disparity? Again, the same group of people, they looked into this, or zip code, that median household income, or if you're a black race, increase, or Hispanic ethnicity, so all percent increases, tower goes down. Tower percent goes down. For each 1%, 1,000 decrease in the economy, financial, the income, and then 1% increase in both the black and Hispanic, and your tower goes down by 1.1, 1.2. So question always remains, is it true because they're not getting the access, or secondly, access is not provided? very important. So it may require more education, and they actually have very nice that within major metropolitan areas in the US with Tower program, zip codes with higher proportion of Black and Hispanic patients and those with greater socioeconomic disadvantage had lower rates of Tower, adjusting for age and clinical comorbidities. And this actually is very nice editorial by Claire Yancey, race bias in transcatheter. Are we sure? Is it because, not that we are not providing the service, if the person is not coming to the hospital, what you do? So this goes back to the disparity of the socio-economic and ethnic disparity for any procedure, cardiac procedure. Have been written so many papers, male, female, black, white, Asians, everywhere. So this is the same thing we are going to get here, and the same aortic stenosis paradox that those who need really are getting it less because they are at high risk, because they're getting less to the excess. Then we have the TEER update, mitral clip co-opt, and the CLASP trial, basically 3-year data showing continued benefit of decreased hospitalization as well as mortality. So not only ended at 2 years, continuous separation at 3 years, and very interesting that after 2 years in the co-op trial, patients who are medical therapy group can be crossover. And look at the crossover, which is the interrupted line in the black. The outcome of those patients after 2 years, once they got the clip, similar to what they received the clip originally. So therefore, clearly, the co-op trial showed that continued benefit of the TEER, and of course, many other additional advantages, coming, that global longitudinal strain, that predicts subsequent outcome, and now with the CLASP, hopefully will be available soon, which is using from Edwards with the clip, showing same survival advantage as well as decreased heart failure rehospitalization. So this field will continue to evolve. Then what about the Tower for bicuspid valve? Registry data in the TORCH, and of course, here we have Raj, whom brought this field to really limelight in terms of which type of the bicuspid valve can undergo Tower. And so, because there is a complex issues there, one is it's not a circular orifice, excessive calcium, aortopathy, and many others factor which really lead to, but now we actually have some data. One data have shown that there is a higher brain injury after the Tower for the BAV, bicuspid valve versus tricuspid valve. And this basically shown that the slightly higher, not only the volume, but the size. Maybe it is a thicker, thicker particles which embolize. But at the same time, we have 2 studies now. The explanation for the higher brain injury, higher PVL, higher pre and post dilatation, prolonged procedure, and longer rapid pacing, and higher aortic valve calcification. Now we have 2 data, TVT registry as well as the meta-analysis, talking about you take a bicuspid group versus tricuspid in those who are done. Not all cases, because remember, many of the bicuspid go for surgery. So those who are done, you can see here, mortality, stroke, bleeding, permanent pacemaker, no difference from the TVT registry, and these are the individual endpoint. Then we have systemic review, and the meta-analysis showed the same from Prisma flow chart, that do have slightly higher stroke rate and permanent pacemaker and PVL, and of course annular rupture does happen more in the bicuspid valve versus tricuspid valve. So this is where I put a nice central illustration. So now we go to TMVR trial, the 2-year Tendyne and Apollo. So clearly that this is a very nice article, state-of-the-art review, published last year by John Webb Group, talking about individual TMVR devices. So where we are, all of them are very early stages. So what has really come is the Tendyne, extended clinical study, and the Summit trial, which led to approval of the, in Europe, approval of the Tendyne for the mitral valve replacement. We have the 2-year data of the expanded clinical study, and shows that mortality is troublesome. 1 year 27%, at 2 years 41.6%. Yes, it does decrease the heart failure readmission, but mortality continues. So this editorial was that still this field need to be settled a little better, although symptomatic improvement does occur, but it doesn't change the mortality on these patients with the severe mitral regurgitation. Apollo trial, which is the surgical, very complex device, but very strict criteria. The surgical part is still ongoing with a very slow speed, and more so for the MAC. But important is, what about the transeptal? transfemoral, transeptal early feasibility study, which was presented recently in the TCT with the transeptal approach, big device, as you see, 35 French, transeptal. And of course, patient with a moderate to severe MR, those who are very high risk, STS risk of almost 8 plus, and shown here that otherwise the success rate was okay, but higher vascular complication, and you had to close the hole in every case almost. So there was a big issue in terms of higher vascular complication, 40%, very, very high. So you will say that this is not the something which you'll try to do, although there is no PVL and the no LVOT obstruction. And so 30-day outcomes were good, but very high procedural complications. So I'd say it's a plus minus, lot need to be done. And of course, the TEER versus TMVR will continue to evolve. So now we go to the TTVR trials. Tricuspid, as you saw my first slide. So I brought the tricuspid lesion before, make a yellow rather than red of the TMVR except the TEER. So tricuspid, it looks like that this is the valve which has, of course, severe tricuspid regurgitation, always majority time secondary, and prevalence is quite high. Severe the TR, higher is the mortality, and of course, still very under-treated surgically because of edge isolated. When you are doing a mitral, then surgeons try to do tricuspid, but isolated tricuspid surgery is very small. And that number remains very small, and therefore, lot in terms of the transcatheter therapy has been, are in evolution at various levels, whether vena cava level, at the valve level, the complete valve replacement level, or annuloplasty. So mitral clip is commonly used for this purpose, and now bigger device, which is XTR, and showing a better outcome, and particularly even with the patient with torrential tricuspid regurgitation. So better success, but still far away because they still the entry criteria is very strict to be used. Triluminate with the Sinai being the primary site, and Gilbert is the PI at Sinai, with the randomized trial is ongoing at present, will take some time. Now, TriSend is a very exciting. This is the device, as you can see, is the complete replacement of the tricuspid valve. And the way it sees, I mean, again, I have not used it, but we heard from many of those who have used, and we are the leader here with Raj Makkar using quite a bit of these, that valve replacement of the tricuspid valve. Still looks like you just tether against the inferior portion of the tricuspid valve and you deploy the valve. Looks very simple. Hopefully it is simple. Now they have done about 200 plus cases on the TriSend and so, and the overall the EVOQUE tricuspid delivery system from Edward, and basically, as you can see here, high-risk patients, procedural outcome, technical success 92%, and otherwise, look at the complication. For an initial device to have almost no complications is very, very remarkable. And that is where I made this. TR severity goes down and almost disappears, a very low mortality. These are the high-risk patients. And these are 6 months data and very good decrease in the heart class. So clearly the TriSend 2 trial ongoing will have a part of the discussion this later on with our faculty and so. So a lot of therapies are going on for the tricuspid. I think somehow for the valve replacement point of view, in my opinion, tricuspid has gone up a little more than mitral because of various issues. So most important advance of 2021, I would put it together, is the valve durability. We were always worried about the TAVR valve. What will happen to it? So we have now 2-year low risk, 5-year intermediate risk, 8-year again low risk. And the 2-year data everybody knows, PARTNER 2 trial, death, disabling stroke, exactly identical. If you take a heart failure, lower with the TAVR. And these are the individual endpoint, except there's some valve thrombosis is still an issue. 2.6% with the TAVR versus surgery being 0.7. Then the cost. Cost-wise, yes, initial little higher cost, but if you take it for 2 years, the TAVR is little financially, economically better. Now we go to CERT-AVI 5-year data, same intermediate risk TAVR, identical. Exactly identical. Here, we didn't see valve degeneration different. Valve thrombosis and so, identical. We had a little bit in the PARTNER 2, PARTNER 3, we have PARTNER 2 also, but in the CERT-AVI 5-year, no difference between surgery. What, on the contrary, better valve area at 5 years with the tower compared to surgery as shown here and the lower gradient. So then we go to 8-year follow-up now of the NOTION trial and basically showing the overall outcomes are identical, bioprosthetic valve failure is identical, and of course, structural valve deterioration actually significant is less with the tower compared to surgery. Again, very reassuring. And these are the individual endpoints. You can see here, 8-year more important consistently. 5-year in the CERT-AVI, 8-year, 2-year in the partner, the 8 years in the NOTION, having a better aortic valve orifice with the tower compared to surgery. That's very reassuring. Very reassuring. Tell your patient that you will get at least 8+ years. So there comes, issue comes down that at what age you do. You know the guidelines are 65 years. So key is this, every 10 years things will change. Now there is a lot of data on the tower explant and all this need to be looked into it that when you make a decision, knowing that patient can get 2 treatment subsequently. So these are the top 10 advances, and let me put this together. My presentation, which I call it the central illustration, the trial which changed our transcatheter valve interventional therapy in 2021, PCI pre-tower TMVR trials, thumbs down. Tower for BAV, no X for tower, plus minus. Some studies plus, some negative. Valvular heart disease guidelines, geographic racial tower disparity. Yes, we need to understand this better. Clearly positive message. TEER trials and TTVR trials, 2 thumbs up. And the real one, the tower valve durability and AVR in symptomatic aortic stenosis is the 3 thumbs up to make us a better interventional outcome and improved survival. And with that note, I'll just stop here to give the data that we had done quite well. Tower growth at Sinai, we should do 450, and the clip will do about 50 clips this year. And this field is continuing to evolve, and we actually every 2 months we have the CCC live cases of the structural live cases 9 to 10 second Tuesday of the month, every second month to continue to educate everyone besides this format of what we have today. But I'm sure you'll have a lot of enriched material today with all the great brains and great scientists here. Be free to ask the questions, and of course, Dr. Mehran will ask, the chat or any question you'll ask. Your question will be answered whether live here or on the Zoom. We really want people to get their curiosity and questions to be answered today. With that note, I would say if that happens, our purpose of the today's symposium will be settled. With that note, Roxana, come here.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Before you go, I think it's wonderful for those of you online. I know there's a lot of you there. And I want to take the opportunity to just kind of first let you guys know that all of you here in the room, and the room is packed full, please use these microphones and ask questions. We really want this to be interactive. For those of you online, please send us your questions. It will come to me at my desk, and I'll definitely address them. This is the opportunity for all of us to converse, an opportunity for us to have these incredible luminaries in the room and be able to ask some questions. So as we reflect in 2021 and going to 2022, you heard Dr. Sharma's top 10. So I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to come up to you and see what was your biggest reflection in 2021. Now I'm going to start with Alain Cribier. Alain? Your biggest reflection of 2021 in TAVR.
2021 in TAVR. It's a good technique. It's a good technique. It works very well. No, I was very much impressed by what you said. This overview of all the literature on the topic of TAVR and mitral valve replacement and so on. Well, I think there is a big difference between implanting a valve in the aortic position and implanting a valve in the mitral position. And I predicted that it won't be the same story. And maybe we will have a lot of opportunity to discuss that with Eberhard and so on the mitral side. But what you have seen what you have shown is absolutely unbelievable. This amount of literature. you know, exploring everything. But I feel bad because I am a little responsible for that, you know. But it's absolutely amazing. So I think that we are almost reaching a plateau in many places, you know, with TAVR in 221. The percentage of increase in the population will stay a little about the same, maybe a little more patients because of the possibility of implanting accepted implantation in low-risk patients, but it was already done, you know, it was already done. So I think what can we expect? Maybe only some progresses in the valve structure, maybe to increase the durability of the valve function on long term.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So let me go to Eberhard. Eberhard, you heard the talk. What was your reflection in 2021? What are you looking for in 2022?
My reflection was that I liked Dr. Sharma's presentation. That was the most impressive one. Number one, is he gone?
Yeah, he's got to go get to the
Well,
last page.
my point is, you know, we're seeing all these studies, and I wonder, do we really need studies for everything? You know, I was wondering about the PCI after TAVR. You can study, do it before, intermediate, or during, or afterwards. I think, honestly, a study doesn't help at all. At the end of the day, you decide what you want to do. It depends on your own, you know, on your own skill set, whether you want to do PCI before, after. A study doesn't help, I don't think. So maybe we're studying too many things. Having said that, I think for me the most important one was Surtavi, and he presented that.
Yeah, really amazing. Howie Herman from University of Pennsylvania here with us. What are your reflections?
Well, I'm sitting here next to Eberhard and Elaine, and so, yeah, I think about the fact that I've been doing TAVR not quite as long as Elaine, but since the early days of the partner trials. And I think what we generated in the first decade or so of TAVR in the US is proof that it works, proof that it is as good as surgery and better than surgery in many patients. But I think the future, and particularly for the younger people who are watching and in the room, is that we now have to refine it better. We have to take it from being as good as surgery to be perfect. We have to lower the complications, the stroke rates, the vascular complications to as close to zero as we can. And I think we have to refine it now beyond just saying we can replace a valve.
Absolutely. Well, I know that you're leading the small annulus and the very first randomized clinical trial. We're going to hear a lot about it today. So for those of you online, for those of you in the room, the principal investigator of the SMART trial for the small annulus of two valves, randomization between SAPIEN and the core valve is going to be presented today in the trial design and why we need to look at that. But of course, we have Raj Makkar here, one of the early adopters, the person who told us about maybe subclinical valve thrombosis. What are your reflections in 2021 and what are you looking for in 2022?
Thanks, Roxana. That was a terrific talk by Dr. Sharma. I think that one of the areas that still remains to be explored, but where we've made progress, is bicuspid aortic stenosis, right? So I think, and Dr. Sharma mentioned that, the recent analysis in more than 3,000 patients who were low risk for surgery from the TVT database suggests that in consecutive but selected patients with bicuspid aortic stenosis, you can have less than 1% mortality. So I think that is great news for the field.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all of your contributions. And now you've moved on to tricuspid and mitrals, and we're going to hear incredible talks on that. And with that, I think we're going to go to our first opening session.